I've had about 20 years in procurement, having started originally with PepsiCo, so working for brands like Walker's Crisp in the UK, Gatorade, Tropicana. I found myself in procurement just before Y2K, just to date me. And then I spent 20 years mainly in packaging, followed by a period in commodities, a period of indirects, based out of the UK and also based out of Switzerland, and then more recently out of the Netherlands, working for Danone. I was fortunate when I worked in Switzerland to be part of an M&A process, and I've been on both sides of the table, so acquiring business and also selling. And one of the pieces I really enjoyed was when we sold a business called SAB Miller, a South African brewery business, to Anheuser-Busch. I got the chance to leave, join Asahi, a Japanese brewer, and set up a procurement function from scratch. That process of demerging and creating a procurement team really appealed to me. When I saw that Alliance Healthcare had been bought by AmerisourceBergen, and there was the opportunity to effectively repeat the process in a different industry, it was just too good to refuse. Hence why I took it. One of the pieces that came to me as a big surprise when I first joined was that we had no matrix structure and no category leads. What had happened during the divestiture was the category teams had stayed with the parent companies, so Walgreens in this case and Boots in the UK. And what I found was a federated structure with a group of generalists based in country, no centre resource, no pan-European or global strategies, very much a short focus, firefighting, dealing with immediate business needs, no low-cost sourcing, no attempt to drive a scalable approach to procurement. Yeah, so there's a team of 4 in the UK, and then there's the remaining 16 in Europe, spread between France, Spain, Norway, Netherlands, Romania, and Turkey. We always have a number of JVs then that we have a light touch relationship with also in Europe. In the US, it's a slightly different structure. We have roughly 17 people based out of Philadelphia. Their spend coverage is not quite as detailed as you'd see in Europe. So they tend to run around about 50% of the spend under management, but the categories they do manage is far greater detail. The culture's predominantly cost driven today, but you will see that change, and I'll explain why in a moment. The business has a very low margin. As a result, we don't make anything. We have no brand, so it's all about the service that we can add to brand manufacturers and the service we can apply to the pharmacies at the other end. As a result of it, the business has been extremely cost focused and tends to look quite short term about hitting its annual commitments as opposed to a longer term investment. That's changing with the acquisition through AmerisourceBergen, which has a much longer viewpoint. You're beginning to see a change in the culture to a longer time horizon, more investment for the future, more structural changes to give a degree of resilience, as opposed to today, we tend to be very dependent upon individuals. There's not a lot from an IT standpoint, from a processes standpoint to underpin that. So you're beginning to see that change, which is what gives me hope and what, again, brought me to the company. As I said earlier, with a federated structure, I found that we were buying energy in every single country and there was no energy strategy. I couldn't find any PPAs in place within the business, and I couldn't see anything around renewable energy or how we would hit our CO2 reduction targets, which I'll come on to later. This role is the first of the roles that we're going to centralize. So what I'm looking to do is to bring the sourcing and the strategy for procuring energy into the center with a view to how do we hit our carbon reduction targets, how do we move to 100% renewable energy, how do we eliminate gas, and how do I drive that strategy from the center? How do I put a hedging mechanism in place to make sure we manage that, but still being aware of the in-country needs? So if I take a ZBB, zero-based budgeting approach, the ultimate for me would be having price responsibility sitting with procurement centrally, and then usage responsibility sitting in country. The challenges firstly are cultural. So when I mentioned the deep focus on costs, that focus has to remain, but we have to change the way in which we operate. So looking for what does a solution look like? what do we need from a service quality standpoint, from innovation sustainability, and then ask the question, what would it cost us? That's quite a difficult transition, because at the moment we tend to ask, what's the price? What am I expected to pay? And then we work out what we can get for that budget. Besides that, we have the same challenges that most businesses face at the moment. We have large inflationary headwinds, which will be a challenge to overcome. We also work within a strong regulatory environment that is quite slow to change. If we want to, for instance, digitise or move the agenda forward, it's not something you can do quickly, because you tend to lobby government, lobby organisations like the FDA to make changes. Those are not quick. So our ability to, if you like, change the way we operate, to transform, is a challenge. Add to that the inflationary challenge. We've got quite a few headwinds out there that will take a while to overcome. The role will be the first of, as I said before, the first central role that we'll put in place. So the onus, the responsibility on this individual and myself to demonstrate that the change in approach would deliver significant value, it's high. For this individual, I'd expect them to be in country probably twice, maybe even be 3 times a year at the beginning, typically meeting at board level with MD, with FD, with Ops Director, explaining what the strategy is, how we'd implement it, and make sure we're capturing any pain points and needs within the business. So this is a very visible role. Centrally, it also means reporting back into the CEO for the division, plus the CFO, explaining why what we're doing is a change, what that transformation delivers, what the benefits are, and why it's the, if I can call it, the right step in the right direction, because this is the entry point. After this, you'll see other central roles once we build credibility and demonstrate that we can add more value by managing categories like this centrally. My preference would be somebody with a full MSIPS level 6 qualification, but equally somebody that's got 10 years worth of procurement experience, has run cross-border sourcing exercises, preferably with an energy background. I prefer them to be from the consumption user side as opposed to the supply side. But again, I'm very open to people who have the necessary, should we say, procurement experience, but not necessarily the relevant category experience. I'm happy to grow that experience to a degree with people. The reason I say that is because the role is so visible, the influencing skills, the selling skills, the ability to come across with gravitas are probably more important than deep subject matter expertise, because at the end of the day, we can buy that expertise in the marketplace if we need to. This is about persuading, taking people on a journey. So it's as much about the person's interaction, their soft influencing skills, as it is about their subject matter knowledge. Yeah, so we have a policy today that looks for 50% attendance in office or travel with 50% home working. In practice, when you've got 7 countries in Europe to cover, if you spend 2 nights, 3 days in a country, that's the equivalent of spending 50% of your time in the office. So on balance, it works out probably 1 week at home with a couple of days in the office, the following week traveling to a country, and then that cycle repeats. You get through 7 countries every 14 weeks and then repeat the cycle. I mentioned mergers and acquisitions before. This was the opportunity for me to demonstrate to people that procurement is not just a back office function, but it's people who can add genuine value to the business, and the opportunity to create that value, educate people, demonstrate that value, and leaving a lasting legacy. We have a wonderful opportunity here, because procurement is not bad-mouthed. We don't have a problem that we need to fix. This is very much about demonstrating that we can offer far more than the business is aware, and it's up to us to demonstrate, to show, and then to leave that legacy behind us.